Hey guys and girls, Birchy here from the B.Invested headquarters. Today doing whiteboard sessions. Got a really cool topic to talk about. It's a very common question that people ask. So interest only versus principal and interest. That's what we're talking about today. So talking about finance. You're looking for a guy in finance, 6'5", blue eyes. I just don't have the blue eyes, but got all the other things happening, right? So looking at, when you're buying a property, should you pay it down or not, right? So a lot of people come in and say, okay, we've got a property for $200,000. What should we do with it, right? Very good question. And if you go interest only, right, that'd be, I'm just making up numbers here, right? Let's just say 5%. By the time you're watching this, the interest rates probably come back down anyway. But let's say 5%. That means that you're paying $10,000 a year in interest, right? If you're doing principal and interest, just making it up here, you might be paying $13,000, right? So yeah, there's an extra $3,000, right? But if you're buying 10 properties in your portfolio, that's $100K versus $130,000, right? And people are like, well, why would you buy a property and never have any intention of paying it off, right? I think it's important to have a debt reduction and to payout strategy at some point in your journey. But I think it's silly, personally, and this is no financial advice. I'm not your financial advisor. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just a dude that has bought hundreds of properties for himself and tens of thousands for other people. So I know a thing or two about investing. There's my little disclaimer for the authorities when they watch this stuff. So I know they like my content, but they just try always to, oh, you're giving financial advice here, whatever. So no, none of this is financial advice. I'm just talking very basic, logical sort of stuff. For me personally, I like interest only. Most loans, when you acquire the loan, it's either 1, 3, 5, and on occasionally a 10-year interest only facility, right? So if you're buying a property and it's interest only, it might only be interest only for the first year, third year, 5 years, whatever, right? But if you're a smart investor and you understand, like previous videos, that cash is trash, they print more money than ever before throughout history, you realize that the debt is easy to pay off with a devalued currency, right? So looking at interest only versus principal interest, my view, personally, as my strategy that I've taken on board, is that if you're a smart investor, you buy that property for 200, you revalue it for 300K, you pull out $80,000 worth of deposits, you can go buy another 1 to 2 properties afterwards, right? So what's the point of buying a property for 200, paying the extra per week, per month, per year? In reality, it's probably like 15,000 a year and 150 grand a year if you had 10 of them. But you're paying all this extra cash flow out of your pocket. It affects your cash flow because you're paying an extra $100 a week. You pay down this loan from 200 down to 197,000, right? And then in 5 years, it's got a loan of 192,000 or whatever, right? Is it really made a big difference to the dint of the loan, right? But then you're going to go back to the bank and say, oh, excuse me, bank, can I please borrow some money? I'm going to revalue at 300 and get out equity. Now your new loan's, gone up from 200 to 280,000, right? You had an extra 80 grand onto it. Who cares? You've just gone back and put the money in the loan and then gone back to the bank and begged them. As you build to get it back, as you get on a scale of 10 properties, that means you're paying $100 a week times 10 off, that's 50K. You can use that 50K for your next deposit, right? So that's my thought and view on it. For when I do go to pay down my debts, and all my loans are currently on a principal and interest repayment anyway, but time has passed. So let's say you buy your property for 200 grand, you're paying interest only for the first 5 years, and let's just assume you didn't pull equity or anything like that, you owe 200 grand in 5 years' time. The thing is that in 5 years' time, right, your rent has gone up $100 per week, right? That's just $20 in the first year, $20 in the second year, $20, $20, $20, right? that extra $100 that we see here is now free cash flow that's coming through. So if you're starting your journey off with a property that's 200K, renting for 400 a week, goes to 420, 440, now it's at 500 suddenly on the 5th year, and your loan goes from principal and interest only to principal and interest, that $100 will contribute to pay down that mortgage for you, right? So naturally, and what I've seen most successful investors do is that they'll go through a phase of accumulation, use the banks the best that they can, and once they've got all their loans structured correctly, they've got themselves in a position where they've pulled out the equity, they've got themselves to where they need to be, they've got that whole asset base there, then they start paying down the debt. So here's a story, right, that I just think of. So I'm just going to fly off the screen here and draw a little, some numbers. My first property was $248,000. Right? And I got a loan for like $210,000 roughly, right? And I worked really hard and I paid it down to $193,000 or something, right? This is the true numbers of my first property that I bought. I didn't know how debt worked, didn't know how money worked, didn't know how the currency worked, didn't know how the system worked, didn't know how anything worked, right? I just thought, well, if I need to save up for my next property, if I just get one a year, I can just save up 50K and buy my next one, right? But imagine this was just me, right? And this was 22 years ago, right? And I worked 2 jobs to pay down that debt, right? And after, say, 5 years, or 7 years, or 8 years, I did a very good job. And one of these years along here, I paid it off with $0, right? And they go, cool, pat on the back. I have to save up my next 50K, buy my next property. But in that period of time, the property's gone up. The next one I buy from 240, maybe 320K, right? So I put 50K down, I get a loan for 270K purchase price. And then I work the next 8 years to pay that off. Right, and I've got 0 debt, right? And I buy the third property, save up another 50K. Right, I'm working like a motherfucker to get here, by the way. Saved up 50K, and then I buy another property, and this time they're worth 400K. So then I've got to pay 350K off over a period of the next 7 years or so, right? So I sit here with a property, 0 debt. So this is how my portfolio could have worked out over the last 20 years, right? First one, second one, third one, let's say they're all worth $1 million, right? Let's make up they're $1 million now each. So I could sit here and imagine the difference, right? I sit here and say, hey, I've got hundreds of properties, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of net worth, and I built my portfolio in the last 20 years, right? I use debt as a part of a very good strategy to get there, very safe strategy, and minimising my debt along the way, and my debts are paying themselves off very quickly. Or I sit here and say, hey, I bought my first property, I worked like a dog, worked 2 jobs, paid it off, bought my second property, worked like a job, worked like a dog, bought my third property, and today I'm sitting here with no debt, $3 million property portfolio, and earn $2,000 a week in rent, right? There's a big fucking difference out of those 2 roads that I could have gone down, right? But luckily enough for me, I woke up very quickly and realised that I was being a dickhead for doing that strategy. And then I worked out and understood how money worked, I understood how the system worked, and I was like, hey, hang on a second, if I want to be smarter than the average bear, I need to behave differently, I need to look at this different, I need to look at this like the big fish out there in the ocean. And the reason why there's so many of these wealthy people, you might normally see them and they're like, oh, he's such a lovely, nice old man, right? Ray Kroc or Warren Buffett or Bill Gates, right? They've done so many nice things, philanthropy, this, that, the next thing, Rich Branson, they've got all these foundations, they're helping people, vaccines here, this, there, Elon Musk, great guy, whatever, right? People sit there, but they don't realise that they're just funneling their wealth in different ways, right? They're just funneling their wealth in different ways. And they've understood how debt, strategies, leverage, all that sort of works. So, you know, as an investor, you need to work out what does your game plan look like? How does it fit in on the overall strategy, right? And I've never seen a billionaire that sat there and gone, I'm going to go and save myself to be a billionaire, right? They understand cash is trash. They understand the power of leverage, the power of use those things around them. And where do you want to sit on your goal, on your journey? I can sit here and say, hey, I've got 3 properties owned outright by now, but that wasn't what I wanted. That wasn't in line with my plan. I knew that I had to change things up. And all the decisions that I've taken over the last 20 years to get to where I am have led me to this road. And all the decisions that I'm going to make in the next 20 years are going to end up where I'm going to be at. And all the decisions that you make today are going to end up where you are. Do as you please. On that note, if you need help with finance, strategy, building out the portfolio, whatever that may be, hit us up 1300 367 925, admin@binvested.com.au. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye for now.